Hi, I'm Phil Dolman, and this is Lesson 1 for Complete Beginner's Ukulele. Congratulations on making the very wise decision to take up the uke. We're going to have a quick look in this lesson as to how we hold the uke, how we tune the uke and we'll get us in tune, and by the end of this lesson you'll be able to play 2 chords with a simple strumming pattern. If you don't know what any of that means, don't worry, I'll show you. First of all, we need to get your ukulele in tune. Now, you might have a little clip-on tuner that you can clip onto the end of your ukulele. I recommend getting one. You can get them for just a few pounds. Or you may use an app on your phone. There are lots of free tuning apps on your phone. Or you can listen to me play these notes and you can tune to those. A couple of things. I've got a soprano ukulele here. You might have a slightly bigger uke. So this one's a concert. Soprano concert. Hold them like that so you can see them. And a tenor is a little bit bigger still. It doesn't matter which one of those you've got because they're all tuned in the same way. If you've got a baritone, this isn't going to work for you because a baritone is tuned differently. But keep your eyes peeled, I have a series of baritone lessons coming very soon. The other variation you might find is that this string, the one nearest to your face when you're playing, is sometimes tuned an octave lower, and that's called low G tuning. I have high G tuning here, sometimes called re-entrant tuning. It's still the same note though, so it doesn't matter if you have a low G or a high G. All of the things we're going to learn are going to be exactly the same. You'll just have to tune slightly differently. The notes we're going to tune to, so I'll put my tuner on, and we're going to start with the string nearest the ceiling, and that one is the note of G. And if you have a high G, it should sound like this. My tuner tells me that's in tune. The next string down is C. The next string is E. And the string closest to the floor is A. So when you've got them all in tune, it should sound like this. Notice how the strings are out of sequence. High, then we go low, and then we start climbing up high again. If you've come from the guitar, that might seem a bit odd, but don't worry, you'll soon get used to it. It's part of what makes the ukulele sound like the ukulele. However, some people do replace this string nearest the ceiling with a string, a thicker string, a special string designed to be tuned a whole octave lower. The same note, G, but lower. If you have a low G, your low string should sound like this. So hopefully you're now all in tune. And we'll have a look at the technicalities of tuning at the end of the lesson. We'll have a look at things like if you're having problems with your tuning pegs and different sorts of tuning pegs. We'll deal with that at the end and hopefully sort out any issues you might have. First of all, how we're going to hold the uke. Now, if you have a strap on your uke, that's absolutely fine, but you don't need one. I don't have any strap buttons on this one. All I do is I take this end of the uke and I put it in the crook of my elbow there. And I let my arm rest along the front of the uke. And this hand is going to come up underneath and hold down the chords. I don't have to squeeze it very, very hard. The ukulele is quite light. It's not going anywhere. If you're sitting down like I am, you could also take this bit of the ukulele and just rest it on your leg and play it that way. Or as I said before, you might prefer to use a strap, and that's fine. An important thing though is we don't use our left hand to hold the instrument up. This hand has to be free to move around. So let's play our first chord, and I'll show you the correct way to place your hand to do that. We're going to play the chord of C. To take our left hand, and we're going to place our thumb gently on the back of the neck. We're not going to let the neck drop down into here and grip it, just the tip of our thumb on the back of the neck. Then your ring finger is going to hold down the first string. Now, we number the strings from floor to ceiling. So the first string is nearest the floor, and that's the string we tuned to the note of A. We're going to hold that down with our ring finger just behind the third fret wire. So these are our fret wires here. We start off just behind that one in the space behind it. That's the first fret, second fret, third fret. Some ukuleles have a dot on the third fret like mine. Some don't, but don't worry. If yours hasn't, just count up 1, 2, 3. Gently press the string down there, just hard enough for the string to make contact with that metal fret. Take your right hand thumb and just brush down over the strings, and you should hear that chord. If something's going wrong, just make sure that you've got your finger in the right place and that you're not touching any of the other strings, just the one nearest the floor, string number 1. And that's the chord of C. Right, congratulations. Because you know what? Not everybody even gets that far. Lots of people think they're going to take up a musical instrument and never ever touch it. You've just played your first chord, which is fantastic. You only need a couple more and you're going to be playing lots and lots of songs. So let's strum that C chord again. Remember to use your ring finger, and I'll show you why that's a good idea in a moment. Okay, let's try and get a nice rhythm going with that C chord. Now you can strum with your thumb, and sometimes when you're playing certain sorts of music or you want a certain sound, the thumb is great. But most people, most of the time, will strum with their index finger. And this is how you do it. You let your hand and your wrist go really, really floppy. You gently curl 3 of your fingers just enough to get out of the way, and you can take your thumb and stick it up a little bit so that's out of the way. And this finger is going to brush across the strings. It's usually a good idea to aim somewhere around this part of the ukulele where the neck and body join. Partly because we get quite a sweet tone there, but as you can see, when you hold the uke, that's where your hand naturally falls. Just try strumming gently down with your finger. Let the strings push your finger out of the way. If you tense up, you'll catch the strings and it'll sound all twangy and not very nice. So really, really relax. And I'm just strumming towards the floor, mainly using my wrist. Now this is a really important part of playing. That hand is going to be keeping time. So whatever happens, we don't want this hand to stop. And later on when we start to change chords, that's going to be something we're really going to focus hard on. See if you can join in with me. I'll count 4 and that'll bring us in. And then I want you to just keep strumming downwards towards the floor. Every strum is a downward strum towards the floor on each number that I count. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fabulous. Why was I counting to 4? Well, we can count to lots of different numbers, but an awful lot of the music that you'll learn to play is in what we call 4/4 time, which simply means that music is arranged into little groups called bars, and each one of those bars has a count of 4 in it. Simple as that. Right, time for chord 2. This is why we played the C chord with our ring finger, because the next chord is going to use our first and second fingers. We're going to play an F chord. My first finger is going to play the second string up. Remember, we count up from the floor, so 1, 2, in the first fret space. So get that finger down. Then your second finger is going to go all the way over to the 4th string, the one nearest the ceiling, and play the 2nd fret. So your hand should look like that. Just strum it with your thumb to make sure that all the strings are ringing out nicely. Be careful that your second finger is really arching over and not laying a bit flat, because if it lays flat you might do this. It's touching the next string. If that happens, just make sure to keep your fingers in a nice curve, a nice arch, so the strings that you're not supposed to be holding down can ring out. That's the chord of F. Now, I think you can guess what's coming next. We're going to have to move between C and F. Because we used our ring finger for C, we can get these two fingers ready to hold those two notes down so that they can go down before we even let go with that one. And in fact, I'll show you a little insider trick here. You can play an F chord with 3 fingers. You can leave that ring finger where it is for a C chord, add the first 2, and it will still be an F chord. So actually, you can keep that ring finger there if you want, but if getting 3 fingers in the right place is a bit of a trial at the moment, don't worry. Put the first 2 down as you take off the ring finger. And when you go back to C, you can start to put your ring finger down as you let go with the first 2. Let's see if we can change between C and F whilst keeping a rhythm going. So just like we did before, floppy wrist, index finger ready to strum, and we're going to strum a count of 4 on each chord. Now, it's going to take you a while to get to those chords to begin with, so don't be afraid of starting to move to the next chord when we get to the 4 in the bar. So I might go 1, 2, 3, and as we strum the 4, you can be bailing out of that chord and getting ready for the next one. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Here it comes. 4, change. 1, 2, 3, 4, change. 1, 2, 3. You can start changing now if you like, because here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to C. 1, 2, 3. And we'll stop. Now don't worry if you couldn't keep up with me and change then. We're asking your hand to do new things it's not done before, so it is going to take a while to get used to doing these things. The real trick at getting good at this is to make sure that whatever happens, this hand keeps going in a regular pattern. What we don't want to happen is go 1, 2, 3, 4, stop, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's better to play it very, very slowly and evenly in time and get those changes, and then gradually as you get better speed it up, than to rush and then stop. Because a wrong chord is forgivable, but if you stop strumming, the whole song grinds to a halt. So whatever happens, we need to keep strumming. Now you might be thinking at this point, oh my goodness, this is impossible. I'm just not musical, I can't do it. Let me tell you, everybody thinks like that when they have their first lesson on an instrument. I remember my first lessons on the guitar, which were many decades ago, and feeling exactly like that. But it will come. You will surprise yourself. What you need to do is to practice little and often. So pick up your uke whenever you get the chance. You could do 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon. You don't need to dedicate a big chunk of time. Little and often is the best way to do it. And before our next lesson, I really want you to get used to changing between C and F. And while you do it, I'd like you to say the chord names out loud. Because if you say them, then you'll start to remember them. So say to yourself, C, 2, 3, 4. F, 2, 3, 4. And go as slow as you need to go. Now before we finish this lesson, I did say I'd just address a few issues that I know people starting off have with their instrument. One is getting the instrument in tune, and if you're having trouble, there are a couple of things that you will need to know. One, if your ukulele is new, these strings will stretch. So a new ukulele will frequently go out of tune and need adjusting. That's fine, you just put your clip-on tuner on and you keep tuning it every time you pick it up or every time it starts to sound a little bit not very nice. They will settle down. After a couple of weeks or so, you'll find that you don't have to tune it as often, and when you do, you don't have to twist the pegs quite as much. Talking of pegs, you'll find different sorts of pegs on different ukuleles. This ukulele has friction pegs on it. Now, friction pegs stick out at the back of the neck so you can't see them from the front. They're hiding around the back. And they simply work on screws squeezing them and making enough friction so that you can turn them, but not so that they spin back again. You might notice that there are little screw heads in the middle of those. Now, if you tune up and it seems really easy to turn the pegs, but then when you tune, the note goes away again and it slips, you might need to gently, just a little bit, tighten those screws. You don't want the peg so tight that you can't turn it, but it needs to be tight enough that it will grip. You might have other sorts of friction pegs. This ukulele, for example, also has friction pegs, but these ones have a metal part to them, whereas my other ones were all plastic. If you've got a very posh ukulele, you might find you've got some pegs that stick out like this that actually have very clever internal gears in them, called planetary pegs. And if you've got those, you've probably got a very nice ukulele. You might have tuning pegs like these ones that stick out at the side. And these ones, if you look at this one, are gears, and you can see the gears. These ones, because they're geared, some people find them a little bit easier to make those fine adjustments. On the other hand, when you come to change strings, you'll have to do a lot more turning on these, so swings and roundabouts. And finally, you might have pegs like these. Now, these are actually exactly the same as the ones I just showed you. They have gears, but they're hidden away inside the body of the tuning peg here. If you look online, you'll have a lot of people who will tell you that one is better than the other. They're not, they're different. And yes, bad friction pegs are awful and they will make your life very miserable. But bad geared pegs can be terrible too. Good friction pegs work very, very well. These ones on here are very cheap, very simple plastic ones with a tiny cardboard, would you believe, washer in there. And I've been playing this ukulele with these pegs on for many years, as you can tell by the wear on it. And they work great. They hold their tuning very, very well because I keep them just tightened up enough to keep that friction there. The final thing I wanted to mention, we talked about at the start, the low G and high G. What difference does it make? Well, for a long time it probably won't make any difference. If you have a low G, your uke might sound, I don't know, you might describe it as fuller or richer. On the other hand, some people might say it sounds a little bit more like a guitar, say, whereas the high G sounds a bit more like a traditional ukulele. You'll probably find that you like one or the other, or if you like both, you'll probably end up with more than one ukulele, and one will have a low and one will have a high. And that's entirely up to you. It'll be a long time before it actually affects what we do with the instrument. So just choose whatever suits you, or whatever you happen to have to hand, play that and make music with it. In lesson 2, coming soon, we're going to learn a third chord. And when you've got 3 chords, then the world is your oyster. There are so many different things we can do with 3 chords. But until then, practice the things we've talked about, and I'll see you in lesson 2. Bye.